Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday to you all. Welcome back to Maker That Money, the podcast where we talk about turning your hobby into your jobby. I am your host, Pooch, and with me today, no, it is not Mr. Mayhall of Gloop. It is Mr. Jay Bowles of the Plasma Channel. Jay, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for having me on. Really excited to chat with you guys.
Thank
So,
you so much for filling in last minute, my friend. This is very kind of you. I'm very excited. I know we only just met, but I have to say, I find you to be very simpatico with me and my energy. I love your creativity. I've
yeah,
always loved your channel. Why don't you
thank
do
you.
us all a favor? For those not familiar, uh, give us the elevator pitch on who you are and what Plasma Channel is and how you got started.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, for anybody who isn't familiar, I'm the host and creator of Plasma Channel. So, it's essentially a YouTube channel in a small package, a YouTube channel that focuses on high voltage physics. But in the general aspect of things, I'm essentially a video creator dedicated to innovation, invention, and self taught engineering. And also, in particular, if the engineering is tailored towards plasma physics, there's a lot, so much you can do with plasma physics that isn't super high level, like nuclear fusion and stuff. It's actually all around you all the time, and there's a lot of really exotic things you can do with it. So that's
I
what I do with the channel.
I am so excited to dive in more on that. I know nothing of plasma physics. I know nothing of, well, I know basic physics. I know basic, Newton's laws and whatnot, but I'm excited. So, the first question for you then is how much plasma do you have on you right now?
Oh, well, hold on. My cat is currently attacking my computer. Uh, I called this one.
You called
Uh,
this one.
yeah, how much plasma do I currently have me on right now? Well, my room is surrounded by every single type of apparatus you can imagine that creates high voltage or plasma. I've got Van de Graaff generators, which is the static ball hair stands up thing. I've
Yeah,
got
yeah.
5 Tesla coils. I have ignition coil drivers. I have nuclear fusion chambers. You name it,
You
I got
just
it.
happen to have a nuclear fusion chamber in your. I mean, that's what we're
Yeah.
talking about here. That's
When the
amazing.
landlord found out, she raised an eyebrow, but luckily they like me. So,
Yeah, yeah, and it's all very safe. Clearly, right? Yeah, I mean,
yeah, well,
obviously.
yeah, everything I design is always either safe power levels or doesn't emit anything besides maybe like alpha radiation, which is extremely low level stuff. So,
Awesome. Well, we will have obviously a link to your channel and whatnot in the description. So if you haven't, please go subscribe. It's an awesome channel. You will, I promise you, I'll give you my guarantee right now. You will absolutely learn something. I know I've already learned a ton. We met last week or earlier, just a couple weeks ago,
yeah.
just in talking about 3D printing, and that's been super exciting. We've been working on leveling you up in your fabrication skills. I mean, you've already got amazing chops as it is, but it's really neat to be part of watching how your designs have evolved. One of the things that, and I don't want to jump on your announcement here, but obviously some of the projects that you're working on, seeing the
Mm.
evolution. I saw you did the BSI. That's a thrust generator. Tell people what the BSI is really quick, because I'm going to botch it.
So the most popular video series I have, which actually technically only consists of about, I'd say, 3 separate videos, 2 true videos, and a third video that's derived from it. So a year and a half ago, wow,
Has it been
year
that
and a half
long?
ago. Yeah, since the first video, I decided, I always thought ionic thrust is really cool. And for anybody who doesn't know, ionic thrust is basically a solid state form of thrust with no moving parts. It uses high voltage to thrust the gas. You can do it in space or in the atmosphere. So year and a half ago, I was like, well, what if we make a really powerful ionic thruster designed for using the atmosphere? And I made a multi-stage ionic thruster. It was about foot and a half long,
Yeah.
and I called it the BSI thruster. And funny thing is, real quick, an aside, only 2 people out of the probably 15,000 comments I got on it on that video, maybe 20,000 comments, only 2 people guessed why I called it BSI. My last name is Bowles. It's a series ionic thruster.
So there we go.
The Bowles
BSI.
series ionic. Yeah, and so I made the first BSI thruster, and for a first one, it was great. And then I built the second BSI thruster, which I believe might have been shown on the pre-roll for this. That was a heavy redo over with some 3D design thrown in for efficiency, and that was twice as much air at twice the velocity it moved. And right now, I'm working on the BSI Mark III, which has been, whoo, man, it's been a headache of design and trial and error and redesign. And but luckily, in this exact second right now, I'm printing out parts for the BSI Mark III, and it's going to be revolutionary.
Awesome, awesome. Well, actually, no, we haven't shown it yet, and I'm going to show that in just a
Ah,
second. But before we do, a little bit of housekeeping. We have a tradition here on the podcast where we love to share, where we harness that good energy, we block out the bad, we talk about our wins of the week. So,
hmm.
homework for people in the chat. Everybody have your wins ready. Tell me something good that happened. It can be in your business life. It can be in your personal life. It can be anything positive that has happened to you this week. We love it when you guys share your wins. And while you're doing that, Jay, we're going to put you on the spot. Give us a win for the week for you, my friend.
Absolutely. I've got a bunch of wins, so I suppose I'll just choose one. I This is for my personal life, which is that I've been looking to move into a bigger space and with a lady who's very important to me, and her and I found a place about 5 minutes from here, which is good because I love this area. So moving in technically in a couple days to a house, and I will be living in the garage as I film there.
That's awesome. So
So
you get new digs.
new digs, new place, and a more filming space starting here in a couple of days.
Oh,
So
I know
big
that's
win.
exciting to a creator like you. So tell me about the space in terms of how much space are you going to have as compared to what you got currently?
So like space to space comparison, I would argue it's really only like 10-20% more actual filming space.
Yeah.
Though I can also film inside the house now, so maybe you could argue double as much space. But the house is this really cute, like hippie 60s yellow, like sunshine yellow on the outside. It stands out from the rest of the houses in the neighborhood. And it's just like you take a first look at it and you go, that's a weird color. But it's kind of cool now because now like that's the place I'm staying at, and that's where I'm going to operate my business out of, and also be living with somebody it's important to me, and it's like a dated house that's actually very well maintained. So
That's
I'm
awesome.
fortunate to have found it.
Well, congratulations, my friend. That's exciting. I know it's always
Thank you
nice
very much.
having new
Thank you.
chapters, new spaces, and all that stuff. And almost like sometimes having a blank canvas or a place to like reimagine how you want to do things is kind of a nice fresh start on things, huh?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's going to take some work to really transfer over not just life but also business over there. It's going to take some serious work, but I'm kind of excited for it. Like get a couple energy drinks, maybe some Dairy Queen, and just knock out the alignment.
Nice, nice. Let's see. So for my win this week, I'm going to talk about something I got to actually sit down over the weekend and do some just for fun design, which is not something I get to do a lot, and I find that grounds me and that just keeps me excited about some of the things I'm passionate about. One of which, of course, is 3D printing, and so I've developed the beginnings of a game I'm calling Pooch Ball. This is a fully 3D printed racket. It's about the size that you could use it for pickleball. I actually did
What?
test it out. Yeah, so I did this on the Prusa XL. So for those listening back on the podcast, I'm just holding it up, a fully printed design of mine. And what's fun about this is I used what's called a modifier. And Jay, we haven't gotten to this yet in advanced Prusa slicing, but what's cool is you can apply tweaks to your model. So this was actually modeled as a solid surface, and then I exposed infill. And
Ah,
so I've been playing with different infills here to see how balls like pop off of the racket as it goes. So this is a triangle weave, and I've
dude,
got.
that's crazy.
It's so fun though, and I just don't get to do enough of that stuff, and so
Yeah.
I'm very happy that I got to spend some time doing that. Let's see. Go into the chat here really quick. Win from Karen Chow Design. She says she upped her video editing skills, got some YouTube content published and scheduled. Congrats, Karen.
That's big.
That's big. That's
That's
big.
really big.
Jay, I know as a YouTuber yourself, sometimes the inertia of like just getting started and getting that first thing out there or getting stuff published, it can feel like a challenge sometimes. You got any advice for aspiring YouTubers out there?
I can. And so one thing I can say is if you truly believe in yourself and you believe in your product, whether your product is art you're trying to show or something you're trying to build, or maybe your channel is about language or whatever your product is, whatever you're trying to offer the world, if you have conviction and confidence in yourself, just keep in mind the world doesn't know you exist yet. and they may not know you exist for a couple of videos because, quite simply, you're new to the space. So give it a little bit of time, give it several videos, and let the world catch on. And if your first couple of videos aren't particularly successful, completely acceptable, completely normal, even if it's like your first 5, 6 videos, because the world doesn't know you exist yet. But give them a chance, to let you know you exist.
I think that's just fantastic advice in all aspects of business. Stick with it. I like to say the analogy I think of is like we're all in this giant, marketplace bazaar, and everybody's like the public square, and they're just like shouting like what they've got to offer to the world. And it's so hard to shout above the noise. There's so much competition for attention and stuff. And so it feels like the people that find a way to like go find a little niche or a little thing, like what is it that sets you apart, that makes you like just get a little out of the crowd and elevate. So I always like to encourage people in business to think about what is your niche, what is your thing that is going to make you stand out in that crowd. I don't know how you feel about that analogy.
Real fast, real side. I'm so glad you said niche. My whole life, I've never known if it's niche or niche, and I feel so dumb every time.
I could be saying it's probably well, if you ask somebody that's French, they'll say I completely botched that. But niche, potato.
Niche. I'm going with niche. We're going with niche today.
Niche. Okay. But doesn't matter. All right. And we've already rabbit holed so many times, which is so on brand for what we're going to talk about today. Today on the podcast, we're talking about down the rabbit hole, what that means to you guys, to us. I know that as makers, especially the tendency to get distracted, to squirrel, right? Like we just immediately will just jump our attention all over the place, and that's really frustrating when you're trying to like meet a deadline or get a product launched or whatever it is. And man, I mean, how much are you feeling that statement, Jay?
Very strongly.
Very strongly.
I identify very strongly with that statement, good sir. There's, do you want me to go in depth with it or just answer if I feel?
Well, no. I think that's good. What I want to do is I want to show the clip of the evolution of your BSI here and talk about what we've discussed offline in terms of the evolution of your skills and when you find it's appropriate. Because sometimes rabbit holing is not a bad thing. Sometimes like actually exploring like leveling up your skill set, changing materials, changing tool sets and stuff like that can get you to a better place. So let's watch this clip for anybody that's not familiar with your channel, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, ready? Stand by. This is just a minute long, guys. If you're listening on the podcast, please make a point to hop on the YouTubes later on so you can see this because it's really, really cool. Here we go.
This is the BSI-2 thruster. Like its predecessor, it relies on tens of thousands of volts to create thrust using no moving parts. Unlike its predecessor, it's half the size, moves twice as much air, and is much more durable. You see, back in 2018, MIT built the world's first ionic thrust airplane. So in response to their work, I recently designed what I called a next-gen ionic thruster. The months of work I put into it led to a decent first prototype and a measurable amount of thrust. But it was actually quite basic. At the end of my video on the thruster, I acknowledged the design had room for improvement. But it does have some inefficiencies. I'm thinking of 3 in particular. Well, it had a lot of room for improvement, actually. And after a friend of mine over in Portugal built his own ionic thruster and crowned himself the Velocity King,
5 meters per second? Almost 6!
It was time for me to step up to the plate and create the BSI Mark II. Dude, that's a huge improvement!
Oh, man. Okay, so it has been just such a joy being along for you on this journey, and I think that's part of why I find your channel so compelling is because I do truly feel like I am along on a journey, and that is one of the things. You are a fantastic storyteller. You have compelling just delivery. So real quick, your presentation, your production quality right off the bat. And your first videos I've seen are another level than we're accustomed to seeing. You have some training as an actor, something. Right? I mean, you must, right?
Well, first of all, I'm honored. Thank you that's really nice to say. So before YouTube, I was a television actor down in Texas for for 4 or 5 years. Moderately successful. It was working, but it just so I did get to understand camera angles and lighting. Admittedly, I've forgotten a lot of it over the years and gotten a little more casual in time. But I did develop from that experience. Formal shot angles and rules of thirds, a lot of bokeh, a lot of focal plane stuff, basic to intermediary camera stuff. And I try to apply that in almost every single shot that I can.
Awesome.
I'm glad that you enjoy it.
Your delivery. I mean, just I think there's just little subtle things, and I'm working on trying to understand production value and leveling up myself and stuff. I know the first thing people look at a lot of the time is what equipment are you using and all this stuff, but things like lighting and sound and honestly the dynamics of presentation. Like you'll add a little bit of motion. There's depth to your shots. You're walking. You feel like you're hosting, which is a really, really cool, engaging way to go about it. And I know it takes practice. Being comfortable in front of the camera is not a skill that a lot of us have, and so. Clearly you are, have been well studied in this and continue to deliver well. So anyway,
Thank you.
That's a bit of an aside. On the subject though of leveling up and your tools, first of all, watching this journey, the Mark 1 to the Mark 2 and soon the Mark 3, can you just tell us a little bit about what your fabrication skills and stuff? So obviously you have a lot of understanding of plasma physics and all that stuff, but like to go through the process of actually fabricating these, doing the electronics, all of that stuff. I mean, you must be learning something new almost every day.
That's very accurate. Basically I've been doing the channel for 8 years, and I'd say I've been doing it seriously for about 6, and then full-time for 2. I'd say for at least this last 6 years, every single video is an exploration into what I know combined with I need to learn something else to make this work. Every time. I'm always at like an 80% status of like I fully understand how this idea could work. I think of it in my head, I start building it, and then my previous experience always gets me to like 70 to 80% of the way there. And then I always have to self-learn to get the rest of the 100% to finish the project. And yeah, every video I learned something new. In particular, since I started 3D printing about a year ago, it's revolutionized what I'm able to do. Before that, talking about evolution, I still love acrylic. Acrylic is something I just think is such a beautiful thing to have in projects.
Yeah.
So acrylic used to be my 3D printing. And now whenever I get the chance, I still throw in acrylic. But to me, it's just all about appearance, presentation, and performance. And if something works okay, but looks incredible versus looks okay and works incredible,
right.
I actually always favor more the looking incredible and working okay, just because I like the bravado, the appearance of like a project that's well put together, like a nice sports car, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just something about it. And so I always put more weight into the appearance, and as long as it works good enough,
That's really interesting to hear, because I think for a lot of science influencers and whatnot, you would think that they would favor the function over the form. But that is another great piece of evidence toward what it is that you do to set yourself apart, to bring attention to what you're doing in your channel. And it's obviously a balance of the two, because it's not like the acrylic one didn't work. I mean, it was still super cool. I loved how excited that you genuinely were about the results, and you were like, yeah, that's so cool. Like that energy is just so effective and infectious, and it's I think an important part of that delivery. So
Thank you.
Kudos to you. I'm not just here to bathe you in praise, although it's easy.
No, I appreciate it. One quick note on that too is I'm actually, by choice, I've gotten used to the equipment I have. I'm fortunate that I could afford more equipment, but I just choose not to. I'm lazy. Yeah. So I'm actually limited really badly right now by my own laziness to get new equipment. Like I would love to be even more excited, because off camera, I get way more excited. And I have to cut those parts out because like the mic is oversaturated and it's terrible audio, or the lens is the wrong lens and I'm excited off camera. So I have to cut that sequence. So what I want to do is get some like different lenses and different audio to where you can see like the whole gamut of me being a child while I do this. So
Man,
in time, you might maybe see some more.
that has got to be the hardest part about being a creator, is that just like that everything takes so much longer because you not only have to do it, but then you have to like record the doing it, and then if you don't get the take that you want, or you go back, or you're in edit and you're like, I completely forgot to describe this part or whatever, and you got to go reshoot or whatever it is, and I'm like,
Yep.
just tear my hair out, man, thinking about that. It's like, as a business guy, I'm always thinking about like, look, I need to get this thing done. Like, I don't have the luxury of like getting the thing. What is it? They say like perfection is the enemy of good enough, especially when you're trying to keep cash in the door, keep selling things. The temptation for me to iterate on new product. Yeah, I mean, like, I wish I could just. What my buddy Dave Randolph likes to call it shiny object syndrome, or it's like it's really really easy to just like, oh, let's do V2, V3, V4, and like it's so impractical when you're dealing with so many revisions and people don't even know what version they have, and you know you can't be changing that much. So tell me a little bit about your workflow when you're like, okay, as far as telling the story of the BSI. When did you decide, okay, this is good enough for the first chapter, for Mark 1, and then this was good enough for chapter 2, and then now this is chapter 3? Like, are you able to like eat the elephant one bite at a time like that, or does it naturally kind of come out that way?
I would say I'm going to close the shades here shortly. I'm getting stripe effect going on.
Son.
Actually, let me do it real fast. Pardon me.
Sure.
Oh, didn't work. Okay.
Plasma
Well, there we
engineer
go.
baffled by sun.
Yeah, there we go. Much better, eh?
There we go. Oh,
Okay, so for the ta-da.
Hey.
Well, for the Mark 1, I didn't realize I was going to be doing the Mark 2, Mark 3. I already kind of have a Mark 4 planned, but to me, it was more of an exploration. And I had a theory in my head. I was like, well, you know what? This much energy will accelerate air this fast. So then what happens if you stack them in a series, like AA batteries, 1.5 volts, 3 volts, 4.5 volts. And I was wondering, does that happen to velocity of air movement as well? If you have an ionic thruster, another ionic thruster downstream, and another. So for me, the good enough point for the Mark 1 was just, did it accelerate the air more than the first stage? And the answer was yes. So I was like, cool. And then after some review, I realized it does accelerate the air more than the first stage, but it's like diminishing returns, and you're like doubling, tripling, quadrupling the weight just to get 50% more speed.
Yeah.
So then I went on to the Mark II, and I said, well, let's work on getting it even faster and trying to get the overall weight more efficient. So where if you're doubling the speed, you're not doubling the weight. And what I ended up with the second one, where I considered it good enough, was it was, I think, 10% lighter, about half the length, and it put out double the speed, almost double the velocity. And so that's where I was like, okay, good. My goal is
that's a great result. Yeah.
And then there was one big flaw that actually nobody's mentioned in all the comments, and I've shown the BSI Mark II at Open Sauce last year.
Yeah.
And I'll be there again this year. Well, nobody mentioned this, and I didn't even mention this, but a huge flaw of the BSI Mark II.
Yeah.
I'm proud of it, but there's a flaw. The positive electrodes are like 40 gauge stainless steel wire. If you sneeze too hard on them, they'll snap. So if that's like on an airplane and a bug hits that wire, you'll snap the positive electrode and the whole thing will short circuit. So my goal behind the BSI Mark III is to really commercialize it. Focus not so much on the weight, but focus on the size and durability. So everything on the Mark III is built to where you can short circuit it, overpower it, it'll spark out between electrodes, nothing will happen. You could hit it, and better yet, here's a failed print of the Mark III right now.
Teaser. Look at
the
this.
center of it, there's nothing in the center of it. So if something gets sucked in, so to speak, there's nothing to hit. All the acceleration is on the peripheral outside, focusing air inward.
Interesting. So it's not a giant bug zapper anymore. Okay.
Yes, not a bug zapper anymore. Correct. So this, I'll consider this one good enough if it's a further 25, 30% increase in velocity, and now it's durable and strong.
So it sounds to me like you may be trying to productize this thing, or is this
I
just
am.
Okay.
I am. I'm trying to. I recently received a patent for a similar thing, a similar video. So this one I'll be trying to get out there because I see a lot of potential with it. Ionic thrusters will never compete with a turbine or a jet engine in terms of thrust, but in terms of ultra low speed flight,
Yeah.
we can have solid state airplanes. We're so close.
That's so
MIT
cool.
kicked it off, and I
Yeah.
want to beat them. So
That's okay. So that is kind of when you're thinking about where you're trying to get along the story. One of your goals is beating what, and you talk about that later in your video as well. The fact that MIT, I think pioneer, what was it, 2018? Something like that?
2018, they had the
Yeah.
first. How do you phrase it in one sentence? Fully powered ionic thrust airplane. It needed to be launched with like a rubber band, but then once it was launched, it maintained height and speed. And so it was a fully electric airplane with zero moving parts, used ionic thrust to propel itself. And it was just on the fringe, barely keeping afloat. But that proved that, okay, give technology more time. Give us more time to make more energy dense batteries that can pump out more current with less weight. Like all we need is more time. The tech will catch up, and we're just right there on the fringe. And what I want to be is part of the enterprise that's kind of pushing it forward.
That is so fascinating, man. That's really cool. Well, we'll be anxiously, watching. So you brought up something that I thought was really interesting when you were talking about your storytelling and where to chop it. Obviously, when you do the first one, you have no idea that there's going to be a fourth or a fifth.
Yeah.
But as you start to go along, you remind me of a saying like in business, and that is don't negotiate against yourself. And by that, I mean that a lot of the time, as a maker, you're going to want to be like, oh, but I can do better. I can do better. And you were very smart to realize, look, I got twice as good here, and we're at another level. That's a great improvement. Stop. This is a good point for the revision. Tell that story, and then work on the next improvement rather than constantly like trying to beat yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because you can keep going back to this well quite a bit, I imagine, as you're telling this story, and people will follow you into some very, very interesting rabbit holes and very interesting segments of just one aspect of the BSI design, I imagine. So you've got the BSI, and then you've also done a wing, and so you're kind of simultaneously, it seems like, trying to develop some other applications for this thruster or ways that it can be implemented. Is the weight on the BSI, as you have it here, a critical component, or is it really just for your understanding of like, if I want to apply this for other tech, like your wing design?
Can you rephrase that maybe? I guess
Yeah, that was a little tough.
my
So
cat distracted me.
yeah, that's fine. You mentioned that you saw some weight improvement on the BSI. Is your desire to take this actual BSI and put it on an ultralight, a plane, or is it really just for your understanding so that when you maybe do the next version of your ionic wing or something like that, you are improving there?
That's a great question, and the beautiful thing about the answer is that both.
Okay.
Because what it is as I made the BSI Mark 1, BSI Mark 2, and then I made an ionic thrust wing, which is a wing and airfoil that has ionic thrusters built into it, right? So a self-propelling wing. And the basis of the BSI Mark 3 are the individual thrusters I put on top of the wing. And through the BSI Mark 3 video creation process, I've learned so much on how to make those individual thrusters more powerful. And so now I can bounce back to the wing and apply the tech I learned from this video and make the wing even better.
Yeah.
And so my goal is then, well, it's like potentially you can have the fuselage of the plane being a whole ionic thruster itself. That's the fuselage. The wings then are also self-propelling wings with ionic thrust producing wings. So you have the entire surface of the airplane providing thrust. And they're going to work in union, and each video will bounce off each other and help the tech of the next video. That's kind of what's happening, in theory.
Well, and to watch you be able to collaborate with some just really incredible individuals. I know you've been working with Peter Schriepel and some other
He's
creators
a cool
out
guy.
there.
Yeah.
It's so neat. Do you seem humble enough where you take that? It takes a village approach, and when you can collaborate and tell the story with other people that have expertise that you might not have, there's so much opportunity. For you on the material science side of things, like light weighting the thing, obviously improvements probably to the electronics, to the power density, all sorts of stuff I don't know about. I mean, I can imagine you can keep yourself busy till rapture with something like this. How do you
Absolutely, my friend.
not?
You kidding me? If I won the lottery and I got $100 million tomorrow, you know what I'd do? I'd keep doing exactly
The
this.
same thing.
But now I would just take way longer and I would rabbit hole the heck out of everything.
Well, let's
I
talk
would go
about
down every little hole and perfect that, perfect that, perfect that.
that, and that's that. Let's talk about rabbit holing for a second, because you mentioned earlier that you know there's better tools out there, but you said you're lazy, and I don't know if lazy is really the articulation that I would define it as, but I understand what you mean. It's like, yeah, it's gonna take some work to go through that learning curve and whatnot.
Yeah.
But you do decide at some point, like, okay, I love acrylic. It looks cool. It's neat. You can do so many great things. I can't even believe, speaking of rabbit holing, that you don't have like a laser cutter, because like that
I
just
need one
allows
so
you.
badly.
I got it. Yeah, dude, you got to come
Yeah.
up and do some. I love acrylic so much. I work with it every day. It's so cool. You can heat it, bend it, glue it together,
It
cut
looks
it.
nice.
It just looks good. There's bajillion different colors. It's fantastic.
And for high voltage applications, it's one of the best insulators you can have.
Ah. And then I got to tell you this. You probably already knew about this, but I came across. So I've told you before. We sell like a storage box product where it's just an acrylic box basically for holding 3D printed filament. But when you put it together, you know how it's got the protective film on there, and depending on what kind of acrylic, sometimes they're paper masks, sometimes they're plastic masking, film masking to protect it in shipment.
Yeah.
When you peel it off, it creates that static charge on the whole thing, and then all the little bits of everything that's in the shop stick to it, and it's
And you're like,
yeah, and same thing when you're cutting it. I mean, you were cutting this stuff by hand, right? Yeah, I saw you had your like little saw and you're drilling it. It's not something you would traditionally machine, but that's what you knew.
yeah, exactly. I was going off of what I knew and what I could at the time afford, which is all like hand saws and. Whew, I mean, I'm still only halfway to the tools that I want and need, but I'm at least better than I was a year and a half ago.
What I was getting at, though, is I discovered this thing, and you've probably heard of it. Is it a deionizing gun or whatever? It's basically, you remember those old sharper image, like ionic, like air purifiers?
I've taken apart many of those. Yep.
Okay. So the idea is it's basically using that static to just attract, little lint and dust and stuff into the filter and whatnot.
Oh yeah.
It combines this with a little bit of pressurized air, and when you spray something that is statically charged, it kills the charge on it, and like all the stuff just goes whoop, and like comes right off.
That's
and
actually
and it's amazing. It's amazing, and they're not that expensive.
You want to see something?
Yeah, you probably made your own.
I made one that does the opposite.
But
It shoots. It
Yeah, you
shoots
did.
static.
yeah,
This shoots static.
which is way cooler, frankly. But as far as a practicality thing,
I like those deionizers or de-staticizers.
Yeah. Well, it made life a lot easier as we were putting these things together, because like nobody wants to get something delivered with just like all sorts of dust and crap all over it.
And I mean, I can speak from experience working with acrylic a whole bunch.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you'll be like, okay, you cut the acrylic, then you set it on your. Well, I work out of a house or an apartment, right? So it's like I sit on a dining room table. Now any cat hair on that table is now stuck to the acrylic. You can blow it off as much as you want. You can rub it off. You have to get the acrylic wet.
Right.
And then dry it off just to get the hair off, right? Because the static's so bad. So I could have used something like what you've got there.
Well, listen, if the BSI doesn't take off commercially, you've got a cat hair collector for sale as well. It sounds like as an alternative, or maybe a segment.
Definitely.
Man, wild. So anyway, we're talking about you went from hand tool or machining tools over to 3D printing. So at some point you decided. This is a rabbit hole that's worth going down. I want to learn this because it's going to allow me to level up. But how do you evaluate where that tipping point is for you? Or is it just one day you woke up and you're like, I'm gonna 3D print now because I can do da 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 da.
That's a really good question too. I suppose that because I'd thought about 3D printing for a year or two, and I thought, look, no, that's a lot of work. I feel like, or I thought it was a lot of work. You got to figure out how to use the printer. You got to figure out how to 3D model. I have zero CAD experience professionally, or, I was like, well, I'm going to have to teach myself this and that. And the trigger point, I think for me was, So my best friend and I do this thing every year. It's not New Year's resolutions. It's like New Year's expectations. And we both make a list and we sign each other's lists of things we want to work on. And I
Okay.
was like, one of the things I did like a year or two ago was I want to work on ways to reduce my workload and increase my output.
Yeah.
And that got me thinking, well, what's one thing? And the catalyst actually was efficiency. So then I thought, well, 3D printing, I can 3D print things that are, an exotic shape. I can design it on the computer, make it real. And then the real trigger point
Mm.
was the vast majority of 3D filament printing. It's composed of material that's very, very good at insulating against high voltage. So I went,
Bonus.
yeah, I was like, wait a second. Okay, so this can increase efficiency and I can build structures that automatically insulate themselves when needed. So then I can, up the power levels of things compared to using wood and acrylic where there might be gaps where, long story short, it was a combination of efficiency and then also allowing for better design. And there's a trigger point where I was like, okay, this is why I'm going to switch over because this will revolutionize and step up the projects I'm trying to do. Kind of a long answer there. Sorry.
No, but it's a lesson, and it's not. It doesn't sound like it's just 3D printing. It sounds like a lot of it was CAD skills as well. So you kind of
Yeah, I had
learned
a
CAD simultaneously, huh?
yeah, and I started small. The first thing I ever 3D printed was I made a river table with plasma running down the table.
Guys, you gotta go watch that video. I'll put a link in the description. It is so good. I love it.
Thank you.
I love it.
And I 3D printed. I got these custom table legs. These really cool, like wrought iron X table legs.
Yeah.
Table legs sits on top like that.
Yeah.
And in the X part, there was a hole, just design wise, and I decided to hide the batteries for the high voltage power source in those holes. And then I 3D printed these casings to cover the electronics. So it like looks like it's meant to be. That was my first thing I printed, and it took me like an hour to figure out. In reality, I could do that now in like 3 minutes.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
that's how it all starts.
Yeah, that's how
And
it's
as an aside, isn't it nice when you find something and you immediately like, oh, that's going to be perfect for this. I know watching that video, and you're like, I walked through IKEA, and there's like none of the stuff I wanted was either
it's
affordable
fun,
or it was garbage or whatever. And so, where did you end up finding those legs? Like at a home store somewhere? Like they were actually meant
No,
for building your own table?
I ordered. A friend of mine built his own river table without the electronics,
Mm.
and he got these cool legs. And I think they were actually some foreign website, and they had to be shipped into the country. It was, but they were not cheap. Like this wasn't like they were not cheap legs, so they were clearly built by hand, which made me happy.
Yeah.
And they were totally off on spec, which is why I know they were built by hand.
Yeah. But you made it work. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the beauty of the journey. So you went from acrylic to the 3D printing, and now you're on this journey, and there's still a lot of road, I think, to go. And even for me, I mean, I've been learning CAD. I've been working on CAD for years. I never claimed to be an expert at anything. So what do you feel like the next level up for you is going to be? What's the next thing that you really want to tool in your toolbox?
I would have to say the next tool in my toolbox is going to have to be simulations.
Ooh.
So,
Yeah.
like, I actually have some people I should probably reach out to. An old company that, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
People you want to reach out to level up tools.
Correct. Yeah. So simulations for electrostatic fields and also simulations for airflow would be really, really big. And even if I'm not doing videos on ionic thrust, which I do videos on a bunch of other things, having simulation skills on like electric field densities and where things are most likely to ionize and break down where I don't want them to, being able to know that would help me design a lot. So I think simulations and just having more physical, say, power tools, for example, those two things combined will be the next level up for me.
Yeah, no, that's big, and I think there's going to be just so much opportunity in that space as new tools come into vogue, as like AI gets involved in stuff. Generative design in CAD has been big. Obviously, like we hear the term digital twin. thrown
Oh yeah.
around, which is interesting, right? Where obviously whatever we can do to get as much data in the metaverse and in computer land before we go to the real world, the more time we're saving, the more money we're saving potentially. And I can see a number of things being beneficial for you, especially when it comes to having to learn about like how do I lightweight this thing, and so you know optimizing the geometries for lightweighting, but at the same time you've got to balance that with insulative properties and other stuff. So that is not an easy task, my friend.
Yep. Yeah, I'd say half the weight on the ionic thrusters, all of them, all three, is like you can't actually remove too much more material because you need the material there to block the possibility of sparks jumping. So you need like, so you're kind of limited by, you need insulative things. Yeah, it's
the
true.
the one of the exciting things in the world of 3D printing, people are constantly asking, what do you think is going to be, in the future, in the next year, 5 years for 3D printing? And everybody talks about, speed of machines and changing machine. Like the machines are the sexy part that everybody wants to talk about. But really, really, I've said for a long time, and a lot of my contemporaries have also echoed this, that the material science part is really, I think, where we're going to see things move the most, because we're just starting to scratch the surface of understanding like additives, different polymers that we can use, that we can extrude, different processes. I was telling you ahead of show, like there are 3D printers that print ceramics and metal and glass and like all kinds of wild stuff that
Wow.
that
I don't know
probably
about
haven't
the
even
last part.
considered.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it's just it's really easy to rabbit hole and geek out on like, oh, I want to learn about that. I want to learn about this. So my next question for you then would be like, do you devote a period of time in a week, in a month, or whatever to just like chilling out and like learning some science, reading something new, like trying to seek out some knowledge that maybe is going to challenge you to think of things a different way for your process? Or is it
You know,
something that just kind of comes inherently as you go?
I would say I used to do that
Yeah.
actually. I used to work out because I've always been, as you could argue, a citizen scientist slash professional scientist my whole life, and I used to have, despite having the natural innate passion for learning, I used to have time I'd dedicate to learning throughout the week or day. In particular, when it came to astronomy, I'd love to learn about astronomy and physics. Right? I'd say these days it's getting closer and closer to me kind of learning as I go, and what I learn is a little bit dictated by what is the goal I'm trying to achieve, what is the product I'm trying to build, what is the design I want to come to fruition from my head, and I've been actually funny you said that. I've been trying to get back to a routine of having dedicated time of like learning new stuff unrelated to the videos. But recently, it's been more just learning as I go.
Okay. Okay. Um, question. I want to pull a question from the chat if we can. Geek Tech Studio had a question. He said he's loving the channel. He's going to stalk your YouTube and watch everything, but he has to know what the BSI is. He's just familiarizing himself. Are you limited to it being round? So I think he saw the Mark 1 and the Mark 2 are round. Maybe he missed you were holding up the teaser for the Mark 3, which would suggest that maybe no, you don't need to be round. So was that just a design that just seemed to make sense intuitively to you, or was there some data that you had originally that said let's start with a round, because it reminded you like of a turbine or something like that?
Yeah, it was a little bit. I guess it was actually a little bit of mimicry at first.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "Oh, turbines just look cool in the first place, man."
Yeah.
And the first BSI was round combined with flat squares that slid forward and backwards.
Yeah.
The flat squares was like an efficiency thing of like how many they were electrical grounds. Yeah, how many electrical grounds can I put, in a row? And a square is gonna be the best to get a bunch of straight lines lined up along the square. So I chose the square. The second one, the circle, the BSI Mark II was all cylindrical. For me, with my not fully perfect understanding of aerodynamics, I figured the circle would be best for inlet. And there's that jury's still out on that one. Actually, if circle is the best for aerodynamics, I've had a lot of people write to me and say, like, no, there's a reason why like ramjets sometimes have,
Yeah.
especially if you're subsonic, sometimes you'll have different shapes that are better.
Yeah.
So, some rambling. I was trying to make the second one round because I assumed it would just be the best symmetrical geometry to pull air in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have made the same assumption. I mean, it seems that way, but I'm very, very curious to see what your findings are going to be on this Mark III. So, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it would suggest that I mean, the data doesn't lie, right? So you get
Can I
to
give you a
test data.
teaser?
Yeah, sure.
Can I give you a teaser? Okay. The BSI Mark One, it was vastly inefficient, but still, the Mark One made 2.3 meters per second of airflow out. And the diameters of all three, these are approximately similar, by the way. So the column of air moving is approximately similar in cross-sectional area. So Mark 1 was 2.3 meters per second. Mark 2, if I remember right, was like 3.5 to like 4 meters per second.
Sounds right.
Each of those have 3 stages, right?
Yes.
3 stages making that velocity.
Yes.
So far, one stage of this makes 3.1.
Whoa.
So I'm going
That's
to
a
put 3
huge
stages
increase.
together, and in a perfect world, they'd be linear, and then that'd be 9.3 per second. That's not going to happen.
Doesn't work that way.
But if 3.1 is one stage, I'm pretty confident I can get to like 5 maybe with 3.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. I know, right? Like the intuitive thing is like, well, if I just add another stage, but obviously at some point you hit diminishing
It's
returns.
diminishing returns at a certain point. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But it's neat, and one of the things that's great about I think the tool set that you're leveraging now that once you've got a design that you want to work with, creating another one and another one and another one, like you can print 4, you can print 5 and stuff. You're just the time obviously to print is part of the consideration, but it's certainly not as bad as having to like manually cut and fabricate each of those stages along the way like you had to. So you're
Especially considering as time goes by, the design is getting more and more complex, and I don't know how anybody without a whole team could design the shapes I need for this Mark III. The designs, in the name of it, I'm calling it the tri-convergent ionic thruster. Tri-convergent kind of infers it's 3 axes converging into one.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know how I would do that accurately with acrylic. And another reason why I had the trigger point of being like, okay, this is why I'm going to 3D printing, because the designs I had in my mind, my hands couldn't catch up with what my mind wanted to do. So
yeah. Do you think any of your competitors are like watching what you're doing and like using that to inspire? And then how much research have you done on like what MIT is doing, and do you use that to kind of like that was good, but I want to do this? What do you think?
MIT and I are taking totally different approaches, actually. Very different.
Okay.
Theirs seems to be, first of all, they're doing fully linear 2-stage thrusts. From what I've seen from their pictures, their first plane used like a whole bunch of thrusters in parallel, but then each thruster had 2 stages to it, essentially.
Yeah.
I wonder if I should say this. Somebody from their team emailed me out of the blue, and I have a mole on their team.
Oh. No, never reveal you have a mole. That's all right.
I know, but I actually haven't talked to them in like a year. I haven't gotten, and so even with that though, I'm actually not going the same route they are. It's nice for me to know that they are working and they are pushing forward, because it is a competition, but it's like a friendly, scientific competition. If they succeed, that is great.
Yeah.
But I'm using them as motivation to help me succeed.
That's really fantastic. And I know our common friend Joel went to the trouble to try to fabricate one of his own as well, and he did a video on it. And so my point just being that I think it's really neat and inspiring and motivating, like you said, to just like have other people talking about it and watching kind of this healthy rivalry to get us to a better place.
You know what's great about it too? Do you remember the Battle of the Currents about 130 years ago? Edison versus Tesla?
Oh, yeah.
This is like kind of another battle of the currents, because it's Portugal versus America.
Yeah.
It's Antigua versus me.
Yeah.
And it's the battle of the ionic currents. And we have gone back and forth across the ocean a couple times. And now that I'm making the Mark III, I'm wondering if he's going to push back and do another. And it's like, let's go. Let's do this.
I for one would love to say everybody loves a good rivalry.
Right.
Just don't electrocute any elephants along the way, please. Okay.
Yeah. There's not too many of those in Seattle
PR
anymore.
stunts. Yeah. No, not too many elephants. I guess not. Dude, this has been fantastic. Well, we're rounding out. We got about 10 minutes left. If anybody in the chat has any other questions for Jay that you want to hit him with, now's the time. This is a rare opportunity to get to talk to the master of the fourth state of matter himself in the
Thank
flesh.
you. I have to admit, I don't see anybody's. I'm not seeing the chat, so I'm not actually able to see any questions.
I'll tee them up for you.
Cool.
I try to keep all the derogatory stuff. I shield you. Shield you from.
You look like a hobbit, Jay. Well, I am a hobbit. Okay.
He's actually 2 feet tall. He's Lilliputian. No, he's not. Dude.
3 feet. All right, yo.
3 feet on a good day. And he's got great taste in tea as well. We were
hibiscus. Actually, it's hibiscus blueberry. Is that what we were talking about?
Yeah, blueberry hibiscus tea. My sister turned me on to that.
This is the way to go. It's just so good.
Oh, and he's got it in his SuperCon mug too.
Yeah, with a SuperCon lad 2 falls ago now. There we go.
Yeah.
I was supposed to go last year, but I was too busy.
That's down in like LA area, yeah.
Pasadena,
sure. Yeah, right by the JPL. Isn't that right around there in that area?
Is it?
I think so. I don't know. Correct me in the chat. I want to say it's somewhere near Pasadena, isn't it?
If I
Rose
made
Bowl
it to the city where JPLM is, or JPL, and I didn't. Wow. I hope I didn't miss that last year. I would have loved to go.
If you could get a visit in the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, how cool!
Yeah,
would that
right.
be? We gotta know somebody that can get you in there, man. You would geek out big time. I mean, I've seen some of your Insta. You get to go on these rad field trips. You were doing some like on the wind turbine and yeah. Check out his Insta as well, guys. I've got it tagged down here. He's got some really cool shorts of some places he's been as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
I partnered with Puget Sound Energy, which is Seattle's energy provider. They gave me a tour of their, I guess, wind farm, so to speak. And then I have a hydroelectric dam tour lined up. That keeps getting pushed back because I just keep getting busy. But.
Oh man, that would be so cool to see. That's one of the neat things probably about being a creator and a public figure, getting invited to go along on some of these things. And they're very like obviously adjacent. You're a science YouTuber and stuff, and so talking about the way energy is generated in all of its forms has to be fascinating to you.
It is.
Yeah,
it really is fascinating, especially considering. Can I nerd out for 30 seconds here?
Please, dude, nerd away.
For you and for everybody watching,
Sure.
I want to blow your mind for a second. Okay.
Do it.
Now, whether or not you, this is an example. Everybody may not like this. Think about this conceptually, right? From the moral lens of somebody who enjoys doing this, right? Not everybody likes hunting, but just hear me out. Let's say you're a bow hunter. Let's say you're, thousands of years ago, you're hunting a deer, right?
Yep.
This is so beautiful about energy. When you pull the bow back, right? I love archery myself. You pull the bow back, you shoot that bow, and you take down your animal, and ideally, humanely.
Yes.
Let's say you take it down within seconds. Well, after you pull the bow back and let go, are you tired at all? No. You can do it 30, 40 times before you even feel kind of tired. And so all the energy that made the arrow fly downstream at 100 meters a second, that energy was pre-stored up in your muscles in glycogen. It's pre-stored up. And you're able to so efficiently draw it out of your body and express it through kinetic energy that you can put it to work to do something. And like physics is all about like the flow of energy and seeing it everywhere. And since I've become passionate about it, like I swear, I'm like, I see it everywhere. I see it when cars brake at red lights, all the wasted energy with brakes. And I see it, with vibrations on the road when a big diesel truck's next to me and the concrete's vibrating.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of the pistons moving up and down and the vibrational energy. It's just energy's all around us, and it's just the coolest thing ever.
Sound energy, heat energy. You mentioned you're a surfer, or you like to surf as well. So I have to.
Oh, I love surfing. I also love falling on my face when I surf too.
Yeah.
But I mean,
like the energy, the experiential. I don't know, experiential energy of that of actually like riding. A tidal wave from gravitational pull of the moon or what I don't know. I don't
exactly. It all adds up, and it's the most beautiful thing in terms of like energy expression, and that's why I use the archery example. It's like I'd argue, going back to archery, it's one of the most efficient expressions of human energy you can possibly get.
I never thought of it that way. Very interesting point.
All that energy came from inside your muscles, pre-stored up.
Man, I've got a question from you, and it's inspired by Karen Chow in the chat here. She really liked your mention of having accountability for your New Year's expectations. I think that's a great idea. So cool on that. How now that we are almost 4 months in, how is that coming along? And do your friends like call you on it when you don't start to do it? And do you call your friends on it?
So it's a thing I predominantly do with my best friend. And him and I do hold each other very accountable, and we send video updates, sometimes almost daily, more like weekly.
Yeah.
One goal of mine was learning guitar, and then he decided to do the same, and he's been sending me like nightly videos of his guitar progress. And I've been doing the same thing also. I had certain goals in terms of change of living situation, and then also change of status of certain things like health and finances. And so I've been updating him, and we kind of push each other. So we do have at least one person in our life that holds us accountable. And I think that's a very important thing, because the moment you announce something to other people, you have to be accountable for what you announced. And so it's kind of a good thing, having somebody to announce a goal or a threshold to, and then they can help keep you to it.
Yeah. Another, I think, manifestation of that I love personally is that, I believe as humans, you can argue there's extroverts, introverts, but we're pack animals by nature. And I'm 1,000% more motivated by having a gym buddy or a running buddy or somebody that, I can't just sleep in because I got to go meet Mike at the gym or whatever it is. And like, it seems so basic, but it's so powerful when you feel like you have that accountability to wanting to be there for somebody else, not just for yourself, but to help motivate them as well. And so it's cool to hear you take that kind of concept and apply it to some life skills and whatnot.
That's a good point. Yeah, when you have the gym is a great example, right? Oh yeah, when you got a buddy that said like, okay, at 7 a.m. we're going to the gym, you're more likely to wake up early to go to the gym, or 6, or if you're one of those 5 a.m. people, ridiculous.
Sometimes I'm at 5 a.m. because I haven't gone to sleep yet, and sometimes I'm like, I go through the cycles, But I know what
do you do until 5 a.m., huh?
Sometimes, Matt, you gotta. That's the thing. You rabbit hole, but sometimes you gotta, like, when the neurons are firing. When you're in that flow state. You gotta like harness that. I mean, do you know? I do a lot of reading and studying on flow state, because it's just like, it is so awesome when you just hit that zone. I don't know. Are you able to get yourself into flow, or have you done things for that?
We have 3 minutes. I can talk years about this.
Okay, all right.
There's something to be said about flow state, and there's something to be said about feeding a creative beast.
Yeah.
Sometimes you think about a problem so hard you can't possibly find the answer.
Yeah.
You need to go for a walk, or just stop for a second, eat dinner, eat breakfast, whatever it is. Sometimes you need that break, and that flow state will kick back in when suddenly you'll just absolutely, without even having it on your mind, you'll go, oh wait. You'll be like, oh wait, this might work. And it's nice to be able then to be like, okay, and go work on it and test it really fast. That's one thing I've always loved about like working out of a home. I film out of a home essentially, is in the middle of the night, I'll be laying in bed. Maybe I can't sleep because I've been trying to think of a problem. And sometimes I will just actually wake up, stare at the ceiling, and then it'll hit me, and I'll rush on over to my living room. I'll test something, and it'll work.
Yeah.
And then I'll do it full scale in the morning.
Yeah.
So like sometimes that flow ability of creativity and output is, it's like the most unstoppable force in the world.
It's addictive. I mean, it's part of the reason I run. It's just like getting the blood pumping and getting oxygen to different parts of your brain or whatever. But I always say, like, sometimes, like, take 5 minutes to save 5 hours or 5 days. Sometimes, it's where it's like, it seems counterintuitive. I think makers a lot of the times have this tendency. We just like keep smashing our head up against a wall because like, I'm not leaving this until I get it. Right. We're stubborn. But it's counterintuitive, and it's counterproductive a lot of the time as well. So
it can be. It's very productive up to a certain extent.
Right.
And then once you go past that threshold, it's like negative returns, and you get frustrated, and then your mental state isn't in a creative zone anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's only helpful to a certain point, and then you need that. You said 5 minutes to save 5 hours. I love that saying.
Yeah, yeah. So I think learning, and I mean, so much of being a at the top of your game, no matter what you're doing, whether it's in business and personal life, is knowing thyself. And so understanding like what it is that works for you. I always say, you know the saying in golf, if you have a slice, play a slice. Like there is no shame in if you find something that works for you and it's staying up until 5 a.m. and that's when you work the best, then like find a way to make that work for you. There is no law that says you have to do it the way that everybody else does it. In fact, you're probably not going to do as well if you're just trying to do what everybody else is doing. Brother, we could go on forever. We're gonna have you back because I just love like the energy that we got going between us and all this stuff. And like it's
Thanks. Yeah, this
so
is really fun.
fantastic chatting with you on this. I want to thank you for your precious time because I know you're on deadline. You've got some big life changes coming up. You want to get this next video out. We are all eager to see it. If you are not following Jay, please go check him out on his Insta. Go check him out on his YouTube. Give him a like, a subscribe. We love your stuff. We are big cheerleaders. You also have a Patreon if people want to support your efforts as well, I believe.
I do. I do.
Yeah, and I don't know. Do you do any sessions with your patrons or any special things people should know about?
I've been a little caught up with those life changes lately, but apart from past couple of weeks or a month, what I do is I'll do early video viewership. I also do polls. I also do video ideas. And then I have had a couple times over the past couple of years where I put out a feeler for video ideas. And then I'll get a video idea from a Patreon, and then I give them full credit when I make the video.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
So kind of some small stuff, and also why me compared to a lot of other creators, my Patreon pricing is like it's like $3. So
it's less than a cup of coffee, and it just empowers some just incredibly awesome content. I love it. If you want to meet Jay live, I know that he's going to be at Open Sauce this year. Yep. We've been talking about Open Sauce on other episodes. We're super excited. It's decently local to me. Yeah, so head down to the Cow Palace, get your tickets. You can meet Jay, and man, like I said, we'll have to have you back at some point. Thank you so much for your time. Stay right there. I'm going to close this out. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for our good friend Jay Bowles here. Thank you for being on the show. Everyone, I want to wish you a happy Friday, a happy weekend. Thank you for joining us on Maker That Money, and we will catch you next week for the next episode. Till then, see ya.
Bye.